Hello, hello. I think we are live. Yeah, 6 o'clock Amsterdam time. We are live with another webinar for Podhome. Hello, everybody. If you're tuning in, thank you for coming. You can ask questions in the chat. I will read them and I will definitely try to answer everything that I can. Let me see. Today, we will, of course, talk about Podhome. Like, of course, we do. So, if you haven't heard about us yet, we are a podcast hosting platform, which means that you can go to Podhome, you can upload your podcast episodes. We make sure it gets into Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the other podcast players, including Fountain and modern podcast players. And we do some additional things, which we'll talk about like chapters, transcripts, people, clips, all the stuff that makes your podcast stand out and make it complete. So we make it easy for podcasters. Everything is in one place, really. And we started in 2023 and host quite a bit of amazing podcasts right now. And we do all of that with lots of features, including unlimited podcasting, which means you can have as many shows and as many episodes as you want for one subscription of $15.99 per month. We have Podhome AI, which we'll see in action in a bit, which can create chapters, transcripts, and all those lovely things for you. We distribute your podcasts. Of course, you have podcast analytics. You can have a podcast team of unlimited people that can help you. You can invite people just to help you with your show. Website, embeddable player, audio enhance. There's a donation page, dynamic text and audio. You can add sponsors. You have an API and you can work with Zapier and also an MCP server, which means that you can have Claude talk to Podhome. And we support almost every modern podcast feature, including live podcasting and everything else, which we'll see in a bit as well. I know it's a lot. I know I talk a bit fast, but these are just the basics, and I want to get those out of the way. And like I said, all of this that you just saw is $15.99 a month for unlimited shows and unlimited episodes, which I think is a great deal, or $185 per year. All right. So we are currently live on YouTube and X, I think, and maybe a couple other things as well. But we are not yet live in our modern podcast apps. So, for instance, Fountain, or we also have a podcast player, the Podhome podcast player. So let me just do that right now here in Podhome. Let's see if I can make this screen a little bit bigger so that you can see it. Here we go. Yes. So this is the Podhome dashboard, as you can see. And this is the show about podcasting that I host sometimes, very unregularly. That's bad on me. But I do share the webinars also in here. So let me see if I can start a new live broadcast here. We'll do this on the fly. So I just clicked create new episode and I can do upload audio, but I don't have any audio because I'm making it right now talking to you. So I will say configure a live broadcast right here. Okay, cool. Again, I don't have any audio. And I'll call this, what shall I call it? Pod Home Live. I'll change this later on. Uh, yeah, I'll change it later on. Cool. The rest I will just leave as is because I've done this before with these settings. This means that I'm using the Podhome streaming server. This is included in my subscription. I don't have to do anything for that. You can tweak this if you want. Let's also record this, although I will miss something because I'm already talking. And then I'll just say go live. All right, cool. So this is now a live episode that will show up in podcast apps, but I'm not streaming any audio to the broadcast URL. And that is the most advanced part of this. And I can do that from my desktop right here by using a program called BUT. I know that it's a broadcast using this tool, it stands for. And I have here this configuration. Cool. I'll just say connect to it. It seems to be connected. All right, so I think we are broadcasting live. Let me check that. Here is my phone. Kinda, it's a mirror of my phone. This is the Podhome podcast player app. So let's see if I refresh this screen. And there we go. So about podcasting is actually live. Let me take a look here. Yes, this is the thing that we just did, right? Cool. So we are now broadcasting live on YouTube, on different channels, and also in audio form right here in modern podcast apps. Let me just click on that thing to see if it actually does something. Click, click. Here we go. It's doing. Yeah. And indeed, I am broadcasting live. Do I actually hear something coming out of this? Not yet, but I don't know how my audio is actually connected here. Perhaps it comes through the screen or something. I'm not sure. Okay, there's something going on there. All right, no time to troubleshoot that now. So this is one of the features that we have. This is live podcasting. But we're talking about different things today. So when you have a podcast, oh, let me just switch that around right there. Yeah. When you have a podcast, you have audio in the podcast, right? But you can also have chapters for the podcast. Now, a lot of podcasters do this nowadays. So they cut their episode up in chapters. For instance, on YouTube, they already do that. And that is very handy for people to see what an episode is actually about. Now, you don't per se want them to skip around and just, skip to the end or something. But at least it's a good way that they see, an overview of what you're actually going to talk about and which minutes. And perhaps there is like a section they don't care about and they can just skip that, which is completely fine. I love using chapters myself. I use them all the time. Often I skip an intro, for instance. I know Lex Friedman, for instance, he talks 8 minutes of sponsors for every episode. He starts with that, and I just skip that. I love the guy, but I skip it. Transcripts is another powerful thing to make your podcast more accessible as well. So people can read along. Now, not many people actually read along, right? Because they're doing other stuff. If they're listening to a podcast, maybe they're driving, maybe they're walking, they're cleaning something. I don't know. That's what I do usually when I'm doing an audio only podcast listening session. And that's fine. But transcripts definitely help, especially, for instance, when you want to look up something like, hey, did they talk about Podhome, for instance? Then I can search the transcript for Podhome. I'll show you what that looks like as well. Clips is another very powerful thing. Those are small snippets of your episode that you can set. Like, for instance, oh, this is a cool 2-minute thing that they talked about with a title, perhaps a link to something interesting. And you can have, 2 or 3 of those, for instance, in a podcast app, which is very useful also as an intro mechanism or as a promotional mechanism. And then finally, for metadata, you can also add people. So who actually is hosting the podcast? Is that me, Barry? Do I maybe have a guest? And if I can set those in Podhome, which we can, and I'll show you that in a bit, then those show up in modern podcast players. People can click on those and then they can follow along. They can go to, for instance, their social media website or something like that. Like, oh, cool. Let me just see what this guest is all about. Or perhaps some modern podcast apps support this. Let me click on this guy to see in what other episodes he was, because I want to hear more of this guy. And that's very useful. Now, all of these things, chapters, transcripts, clips, and also people, also help with what used to be super relevant, but still is SEO, like search engine optimization, right? When people Google or Bing for something like, podcasts about cookies. If you have good transcripts there for every episode and you keep talking about those cookies, then you will show up on Google because Google will index anything that is out there and on the web. Um, so that definitely helps. And the podcast apps and directories, like for instance, Apple Podcast, Spotify as well to a certain degree, they also look at all this stuff like transcripts and chapters and clips and people. That's all extra information that your podcast has. And so they can make it discoverable by that. So when people are searching for things, they don't just search on your title or description, but also for things that are in the transcript, for instance, or titles of your chapters, titles of your clips, certain people, for instance. So the more complete you make the metadata of your podcast episodes, the better they are findable and also the better they are usable. So that's why this is important. Now, let me show you how that works within Podhome. Here we still are live. That is very cool. Let me just go to the dashboard here, and we'll take a look at a different show that I have here. One of many, many, many. That is called Test. Can't type anymore. Testing the Podhome app, for instance. What you saw there, a sneak peek, is our sport account here has access read-only to many shows so that we can help our customers. That is very useful. So here is a show called Testing the Podhome app. Now it speaks for itself as I use this to test the Podhome app. And Jurgen, our sport guy, also uses this one. So let's just take a look at what this actually is. It has some episodes that are published. It's mostly just test episodes, which is totally fine. Let me take a look at this one right here. Oh, it already has lots of stuff. Why don't I just make a new episode right here? So when I create a new episode within Podhome, I can upload some audio, which I will do. And I can also use Podhome AI, and I will do this. What this is an AI thingy, and it will automatically do some stuff for you. So it will generate a description and title ideas. It will always generate a transcript for us. This I don't want. I want some chapters, and give me some clips as well. Try to do that. And it will also automatically try to detect some people, like who is speaking there, what's going on, and so on and so forth. Now, let me just grab an audio file, maybe not too long, maybe, well, let's see, I have so many test things. Something that doesn't take too long to upload and process. Of course, I take a huge file. It's actually MP4. Let me just cancel that. Goodness me. Sorry, people, that is the demo effect. Right. It's live. We're running with scissors here. So the reason why this wasn't selected, again, because my default settings say just don't do that. But I can set it so that it does do that. Let me just look at the size before I actually touch something here. Excellent. And this is also an MP3 file. All right, that is much better. Here we go. See, now it makes sense. Now it is uploading quite nicely. And here we go. So it's processing, which means that it processes the audio, and it also processes with Podhome AI to try to get those chapters and that other stuff that we just mentioned. And by the way, when you look at this here, you see that this is all in dark mode now. And I can also use this in light mode, for instance. It's just what your preference is. You can also set this in light mode. I like most of my apps to be in dark mode. That's why this is in dark mode, because I find that I sleep better when things are in dark mode. I know this is also why we have the same thing here in the Podhome app, Podhome podcast player app. I know it's a lot. Also dark mode. This phone is currently in dark mode. Therefore, everything here is in dark mode, which is fun. All right. Of course, I chose a file that needs some processing. So what is going on here in the background is that the file I chose is of a different configuration than my show settings, What that means is I've set the show to, for instance, an audio quality of stereo, 192 kilobits per second, which is high quality audio. And the audio file I might have uploaded, and I'm not sure, is of a different quality. And what Podhome then tries to do is it converts that file to the same audio spec so that all of your audio files are then, for instance, stereo with high quality, which makes for a consistent listening experience. Because, of course, we want the best experience for our listeners, right? This is why we do all of this. All right. So that is done. Now I will continue to do the Podhome AI processing. Of course, I picked one that takes a long time to do stuff. Of course. Well, it doesn't matter, you know. We'll just wait a little bit and I can show you some other things whilst it does stuff. Let me just wait to see how far it actually is. All right, we'll see that show up in the background. So let me show you something very cool, at least that I find very cool. So this is the Podhome podcast player app, right? Oh, I cannot click on this. I need to click on the phone. Here we go. Yeah. Oh, look, there's a new episode of This Week in Bitcoin. That is by far my favorite show by Chris LAS. And he talks about Bitcoin and macro financial news. If you haven't yet, go and check that out. That is a good show. Anyways, where was I? Yeah, so this podcast player app is free to download, iOS and Android. And the reason why we built that is because I really wanted an app myself that works exactly like I want it to. And that is the best reason to build anything, right? So that's why I built this, and now Jurgen also supports this. And the main characteristic of this app is that it has discoverability built in. So, for instance, on the homepage, and I see it's done in the background, we'll get there. You see new episodes from a certain area, like the United States shows. I mean, you could just go there, which is super cool. You can also click on episode shuffle, and then it just starts playing random episodes. And you can swipe through them like this. And you can configure what you're actually hearing, which I like a lot to just discover new stuff, right? All right. Enough about that. We'll see this app in a minute. So Podhome AI just ran. We uploaded a new episode, and now it came up with all of this stuff. Let's take a look what it is. So the audio is here. That's cool. And then it suggested some titles for the thing that we did. Now, this was a podcast about health and wellness and all that type of stuff. So let me see. I'm sure this was good. I don't really remember the episode, but okay. So it came up with some titles. That's good. And it came up with a summary. All right. It's not nicely formatted. Sometimes it does that. Well, you know AI, right? Okay, good. And, you know, as AI goes, sometimes it has these long hyphen things. Very typical. All right, so we asked it to do some stuff, including to create a transcript. And that should be here. All right, cool. So we have a transcript here, which is good. We can take a look. What we do with a transcript is we detect who is speaking. Speaker one, speaker two, it detects that. And we can then, we'll do that in a second, identify who those people actually are. And then we have the whole text, which we, and we underline text that we think might be wrong. So you can click on it, you can go listen to the bit, which you can see here in this little audio thing. You can go and skip to where you want to go. And so you can edit the transcript if needed, of course. You can also do certain things like show the speaker in transcript if you don't want that, for instance. Show the timestamps in transcripts. Maybe you do not want that. That is also fine. You can download an SRT and a VTT file from here. You can also copy and paste the thing from right here. And if you really want to, and if you have your own transcript that comes from somewhere else, for instance, you can also upload one here. Yeah, and here's somebody is saying you might want to let everyone know that the AI will learn your changes and do pretty well at making it right in future episodes, and that is true. It will become better in future episodes, especially if you have a certain topic, for instance, that you talk about. It will pick that up and will become better. So, what we actually give the podcast apps are three types of transcripts: SRT, VTT, and HTML. And then the podcast app can pick and choose what they like best. And we also expose those through the API, for instance. Now, let me go to people first. Click, click. Everything is very slow because I am also streaming, of course, to you. So we saw already speaker 0, speaker 1, for instance. The transcript detected those people, so different people that are speaking. And now I can couple people to it. So I can take a listen at this actually is. I don't think that works right now through a streaming platform. That's fine. And then I can couple who that actually is. So we try to guess who the the people are based on the transcript and based on what we're saying there. Um, we might get it wrong. This, for instance, is kind of wrong because it's Viergever, should it be? This is a Dutch name, but okay. So it tries to guess what that is, and then we can tag those people basically and say, all right, that's this guy, for instance. Actually, that's not me. Is it? Yeah, okay. And this guy is then this guy. And he is, oh, don't click on that. He's the guest in this whole party. Sure, we can add stuff here. If you already tagged or created a person, for instance, with a headshot and all sorts of information, that will show up there as well, and it will keep showing up. I can save this. Then I will save that selection that I basically just made. Good. Now, if we go back to the transcript, we will see that those people are then identified, and this will then also show up in the podcast apps. Not all of them do that, but most also show that. So that's pretty cool. Now you can also say in people, you can also say um, this guy, for instance, which is me. I always show up because I'm the host of this show and I do every show, for instance. And you can have multiple people and they have multiple roles. There's also producers, co-hosts, for instance, editors. If you have a whole crew, for instance, doing your podcast, you can identify all of those people. And we'll see why that matters in a bit. I'll show that in the app. Now, we also have something that is chapters, which we just talked about, and it also generated some of those. Let's take a look. It came up with 22 chapters for an episode of 1 hour and 8 minutes. Might be a bit much, yeah. And so you can see it's trying to guess like where the right cutoffs are or where the right changes in subject are, so that that's an actual good chapter to make, right? So for instance, here's an intro. Okay, welcome guest intro. That makes sense. It talks about from a pro athlete to doing something else, training. Okay, that makes sense. We can see an overview also of the chapters. When I click on this, for instance, it's a complete overview. Okay, and I can take a look. And of course, then I can mix and match and I can prune them, right? I can say, well, this one here, that's this. Number 14, I can take a listen where this cuts off. Maybe it doesn't make sense. Then I can delete this thing. Okay. I can also add one here. For instance, I double click here. Yeah. And then I can give it a title. New chapter. My microphone is in front of this thing, so now I see it doesn't automatically. Oh, I just give it a save. No, it needs a refresh. Oh, no, it did do that. Yes. What you just saw was a little mishap because it showed this is chapter number 1, but obviously it's down the line because it's in at 40 minutes, for instance. And the fun thing about chapters is you can also have images with chapters, which is cool, and even GIFs or GIFs, whatever you like to call them, of let's say of a cat or something. That's not a cat. Okay, here's a cat. No, that's not a cat. Come on, find me a cat. Do something. Let's just do this guy. That's fun too. All right. So, for instance, and then podcast apps that support showing GIFs or GIFs will then show this as well. Let's take a look in a bit if we can show that. Maybe if I just do it at the first one is even better. Here's a one that I already used earlier. Okay, cool. Cool. So I can delete one, I can add some, I can take a look at the overview as well, which is all very helpful. Okay, cool. So we have transcripts, people, uh, chapters. And we also have clips because we asked it to make some clips, right? Now, again, we have the same type of audio helper that is currently loading here so that we can see the audio as a visual, which is helpful when we uh, try to do things in the audio, right, at certain timings. Let me see, there's another from Rich C Media. I can even post it on here. And he says, is it possible under episode details when you add the same links every week that it remembers those links? It does do it every once in a while, but it's not consistent. Well, that kind of depends on what you mean. And we'll go there in a second, and then maybe I'll go deeper into your question. Let me first finish up with the clips. That's a good question. So these are the clips that it generated itself, right? So it thinks that these are interesting sentences or pieces out of the podcast that are noteworthy, kind of. So it creates those here with a certain duration. When I click on them, I can see them here visually, and here I can take a listen as a clip. Then I can delete it, or maybe I can change this up. For instance, maybe it should be up to here. For instance, maybe that's better. Cool. I can also download these pieces, so this piece of clip as a audio clip, so audio file, so that I can reuse that. Maybe I can post that somewhere. I can also let it make a, video clip for me, a video clip, an audiogram. It's kind of what it's called, right? So it's trying to do that now. Let's see, and it does that with these settings right here. And what it's trying to use, and I don't see it should show a preview here. So perhaps I did something wrong to not make it work. But it's trying to use the show artwork or episode artwork and then overlay the thing that we're trying to do. So a subtitle of the actual clip, and you can kind of set where that is, and you can also set the colors and a sound wave and what it is. So what type of dimension it is, so that you have something that is shareable for your social media. Let me see. It is doing something. Let's see what it comes up with. Obviously, this can take a while because it is actually generating a piece of media, and that is, in this case, 39 seconds, kind of 40 seconds long. So, it takes a bit of horsepower to do such thing. So let's see what that is. And again, these things are meant to so that you can share a clip, for instance, on social media. And usually that's a visual thing, right? Where people scroll through, I don't know, Instagram or something, X, TikTok or something. That's also why you have these different dimensions for the different things, LinkedIn or what have you. Myself, I try to stay away from social media, although that is difficult sometimes. But I find that it's not good for my mental health because there's so much nonsense on there. But hey, sometimes we just need to be there, especially to promote stuff, right? So let's see, it's almost done. I'm just trying to talk this together so that I want to show you I'm here. Yes, this is what it made. And this is actually a video clip that I can now download. So this did not include the audio wave that you can see. I did not select that thing here. Sound wave. Maybe I can see the preview. Yeah, we have a sound wave here. Can be in there somewhere. Maybe of a different color. Oh, that's the color for that one. Sorry. This one. It's a bit more visible. And then that will just uh, move when it talks. So that is pretty cool. That's clips. And clips also show up in your podcast player app, which we'll see in a bit. But first, we'll go back to the episode details, which Rich also asked something about. So it came up with the summary, which is very cool. What we can also make it do or have it do is add some dynamic text in there. And this also goes to your question, Rich, um, because you said, again, let's pull it up again. Is it possible under episode details? So, for instance, here where you add the same links every week, like you have a link to your social media, to other things, that it remembers those links. Yes, that is possible. And you can do that with something that we call dynamic text. So, dynamic text, for instance, these are predefined things like chapters. I can just insert that here. And what that then looks like is this. This is then your show notes. This is what it looks like. So it renders the chapters that we all have right here, which is pretty cool because some podcast apps pick this up from your episode description and not from other places. Now you can reuse this. You can also use this. Let me just save this for a sec. You can make your own dynamic text in dynamic content. So for instance, I can go here and I can say my links. And here is, I don't have any good examples, but social one, I don't know, social two, Instagram, and you can make all sorts of stuff, right? You can actually make a hyperlink, of course, with, let me just pick this one, which is a hyperlink. Makes no sense, but sure. You get what I mean. And I can say links or my links. Let's call it my links as a tag. Cool. I can also say apply these to new episodes from now on, always. Then I don't have to think about it. So then when I do this, when I create a new episode, so not for instance the one I created just now, then it already automatically gets applied to your text. And then you can say, is it before all the other text or is it after the other text? You can also say that with some more data. And then Rich says, I put in email links in our episodes. That is what I'm referring to. Okay. So is this then, for instance, something you could use with this when I show what that looks like? Let me just sort it because it's all a mess, of course. Draft, we just created a draft. This one we just created. Too many drafts, right? For instance, so now I could say here, my links, my link. And now it shows up like this, where you have this predefined thing, which could be email links, for instance, and that will then just be in your episode. And that's cool. So is this what you're talking about, Rich? What you could use here? Let's see, did I save it? There we go. Okay. Yeah, it is pretty cool. I agree. I use it myself as well. So let's test all this stuff out, right? Dynamic and chapters by, let's just publish this episode. And that's the fun thing about having a test show. Oh man, why does it not work? Why does it not work? Oh no. Let me just do a little refresh. Of course, the demo effect. Do we still have everything? My internet is very slow. I wonder why. Maybe I'm streaming something. Who knows? All right, everything is still here. I want to publish this thing now. Let's do it. And there we go. So that's saved now. Let me just grab my app. Oh no, it has died, of course. What we maybe can already see is whilst I get the app fired up again, That one is in our RSS feed. It is in the RSS feed. So this goes very, very quickly. And it takes about 90 seconds for it to be pod pinged, as we call it. That is an update mechanism that we use in modern podcasting to show up in podcast apps. So we update the RSS feed, this thing that podcast apps use in the background. And then this app and other apps like Fountain, Pocket Cast, also many other apps, but not yet Apple Podcasts or Spotify, for instance. They check your feed maybe every 30 minutes or so. And we should have this new episode now already here. And again, no, I cannot click on that. I need to click on it here. So let's take a look here. And there is the episode. Amazing, right? So let's take a look. Let's see what this episode is all about, which we just created. And yeah, so it has these people in it. Now, I did not add any pictures for the people, like images. So they look a bit meh. And now Barry, yeah, I am in other stuff as well. That is cool. This guy, the name is actually wrong. So that does not make any sense. If I added a URL to these people, then you would see that as well. And of course, these things show up differently in different podcast apps. Now, also, we had some clips that we defined, and those are the things that are here in the top, right? One for 39 seconds, one for 13 seconds, which is cool. And let's see here in the episode description, we see these links, the dynamic text that I just created. And we also see here the chapters that we just created, and it dynamically inserts those. Now, let me just start playing this thing. Cool. Did it work? Yeah. Now, in the Podhome app and in other apps as well, you can see the chapters here, for instance. Look at that. Isn't that just the best, right? We created a chapter with a GIF, and now the podcast app arrived at the chapter, and look at this. Isn't it just fantastic? Now, we have shows that use this, the chapter artwork, for commercials, like this, for instance, in minute 2 or something, we're talking about our sponsor. And then you can have a beautiful picture of your sponsor or a little clip like this with a link to your sponsor as well, which is very cool. Let's see. Do we have something else? Or is it stuck on this thing now? Now, these are the chapters that we created, right? And we can see them. There's loads of them, 22 in this case. And in many podcast apps, you can just do this, where you can skip through and navigate using the chapters, which is very useful. And in the Podhome app, and this is also true in other apps, like in Apple Podcasts, you can now see the transcript, right? And the transcript here, it just scrolls along, and I don't have to do anything. I can just see it, and I can read it. And the best part is I can just see this. What is this about? So VO2 max, for instance, because we're talking about that. Mentioned a bunch of times, right? And then I can click on it, and then it should start playing there. It should. It's working. If it's still playing. And of course, right now it's not working. Sure. Anyways, you get the picture. So this episode is now enhanced with chapters, transcripts, clips, and also people. And that's very cool, because this makes this thing better discoverable. It makes it much better usable, and it makes just for a better listener experience. And that is ultimately what we want, right? We want our listeners to have the best, because that is what we like. Okay, so that is how you can do that in Podhome. Now, you can use Podhome AI, like I just showed, to do that for you. You can also do all of those things manually. You can just craft your own chapters. You can upload your own transcripts, create your own clips, all that type of stuff. You don't have to trust the AI to do it. You can make it do that yourself as well. So, very cool. Let me shift to this one. Here we go. Minimize. I'm back. Here we go. And then Rich also says, thank you for integrating Claude into Podhome. It's a lifesaver when editing. Yeah, it is really cool. So what he means is that you can use Podhome with Claude, with the MCP server. It's something you need to set up. It's pretty easy. And once you do that, you can just talk to Claude to use Podhome. You just say, hey, upload this as an episode to my show, publish it, and do all sorts of things like that, which is really helpful. I use it myself as well, of course. So we've gone through lots of stuff: chapters, transcripts, clips, people, Podhome AI as well there. And now, finally, we'll come to this. And that is, if you are a new user, you can enjoy 3 months for free if you use this coupon code, which is unlimited 2026. That is for new customers. And you can do that by going to or just not podhome.fm to start. And you will always start with a 30-day free trial, just to see if you like it, right? Just try it out, create a show or two, try it out, see if you like it. It's free. So go ahead, go try it out, and let us know what you think, right? We're very open to suggestions. We're always improving stuff and building in more modern features so that it's easier to use and so that you need less other platforms to do stuff. That is kind of our goal, all in one platform for podcasting. So thank you very much for listening to me ramble here and for enjoying Podhome here. And spread the word, go podcasting, and go out and create some cool stuff. And we'll see you next week for more podcasting stuff. In the meantime, if you have any questions or remarks, just send us an email at support@podhome.fm. And for now, have a great day, great evening, great morning, wherever you are, and go enjoy life. Bye.